In this slidecast, we're going to look at specifications in particular. So specification allows the designer to state exactly what is required. When he's doing the design, he'll make decisions about what type of materials he wants, and he needs to convey that, and he does that in the specification. It allows the contractor to find out what the designer's intention was. What does he actually want? What quality of material does he want? What quality of workmanship is okay? And that means that when the tenderers are doing the pricing the tender document during the tendering stage, they're all pricing the same thing. It's not like a tenderer can say, oh, we can use this cheaper product and reduce our contract price and win it using this cheaper product, which is going to break down after a few more years. It's not going to last the design life, but that's fine, it's not specified. So what you do is the designer says, this is what I want, these are the things that are of the appropriate standard, and all tenderers have to price that. It stops tenderers from providing cheap and nasty products which won't do the job but save the tenderer money. So they set out the quality required, and you recall that quality is fitness for purpose. It does what it's supposed to do, no more, no less. When a designer is designing something, he's looking at the materials he's proposing, the standards of workmanship, the tolerances, and he's saying what material is going to do the job. Okay, if he goes for something that's cheaper, a less high quality material, then it might not do the job. It might break down after a few years, whereas it's supposed to last for decades. Or it might be that it doesn't look good, whatever. On the other hand, if he specifies something that's of a much higher standard than what is required, then he's wasting money. He's going to possibly be paying more money for that higher standard material or higher standard of workmanship that's not required to do the job, and therefore the job's going to be much more expensive. There are two types of specifications. Now, most specification documents are a mix of these two types of specifications. So it's not like a whole document is all method specification or performance specification. It's usually a mix. So in a specification document, there are a whole lot of requirements. Some of them will be method specifications, some of them will be performance. A method specification is where the designer sets out exactly how he wants the contractor to do the job. So for example, in the blue here, clear grass with a 10-ton digger. We don't want you to clear the grass with a 20-ton digger or a 1-ton digger. You clear it with a 10-ton digger. Compact the subgrade with a 5-ton vibrating roller. So you don't do it with a 1-ton PTR or a 10-ton sheep's foot roller. You use a 5-ton vibrating roller. Now sometimes this is okay because the designer might say, I want a particular type of compaction to happen, and this is the type of machine that I know will do the job. Okay, it might be that he is specifying a product that needs to be installed in a particular way. The manufacturer of the product says you have to install it in this particular way for the guarantee to be valid, for example. So the designer will take the manufacturer's installation instructions and cut and paste it into the specification. So then the contractor has to do it in the appropriate manner. But generally this is not the best way of doing things, because it is the designer, who's a specialist in design, telling the contractor, who's a specialist in construction, how to do the construction. The person that is best placed to figure out the most efficient way of constructing something is the contractor. So that leads us on to that second type there, which is a performance or end-use specification. So it's known as a performance or an end-use specification. And with this type of specification, the designer just says what the final product's supposed to look like, and he leaves it up to the contractor to decide how he's going to do it. So in this blue here, construct subgrade to the shapes shown on the drawings and to the specified compaction. So he doesn't tell the contractor what type of roller to use. He just says the specified compaction, and then the contractor can use whatever type of roller or compaction equipment he deems suitable. Specifications themselves, the specification document normally consists of two parts. The first one is the preliminary and general. Now it's a bit confusing calling it general because it's not really a general statement, because it is specific to the project. It's project specific. So it's also known as the preliminaries or the project specification. It is written for the contract, so it says project specific things like what is involved in the contract works, what needs to be done, what is included in the contract works and what is not included, what materials might be supplied by others, site-specific issues. For example, there might be a power line, underground power line going across the site. The contractor needs to be told about this, and the preliminary and general is where you do it. You also talk about site huts, where the site huts are supposed to go, the access road, what quality it's supposed to be, all those things that are specific to the contract. And then this is followed by what's called the technical specifications, and these are generic technical information. If you work for a consultancy or a design, other type of design firm, you'll find that they have a database, a library full of technical specifications. So for example, if you're designing a road, you will go into the database, you'll pull out the technical specification on roading, you'll cut and paste it straight into your tender document. So they're usually not changed, because when a company prepares a technical specification, they get the person that's the best designer in that particular field. So you get the roading expert to write the roading technical specification. So what the technical specification is the best practice, the best way of doing it, the best way to specify the materials, the best way to specify the workmanship. And it covers all of the stuff that's required to do that particular thing. It's arranged by trades or work activities. This means that all the stuff about building the road is included in one section. All the stuff about doing concrete work is included in another section. All the stuff about pipe laying is included in yet another section. This way, the people that are on site, the foreman that is, say, building the road, only has to look at one section of the technical specification. He doesn't have to slug his way through the whole document to find out what he needs to know to do his job. He just goes to that one section. And the technical specification can be several hundred pages. So by putting it all in one section, it makes life much easier and makes the work more efficient. Contract variations can be initiated by the contractor as the construction work goes on. Remember, the contractor is the expert in construction. In a DBB project, the designer is a different person, so the designer and the contractor are different people. So the contractor might go to the designer and say, in the specification you have specified this type of aggregate from this particular quarry. We can get it cheaper from this quarry, and the aggregate is of the same quality. It's going to do the same job, and the designer or the engineer will look at that and say, yes, that's fine, you can do that, or no, that's not. Likewise, valve types, valve brands, the designer might specify a particular valve brand and the contractor can get it cheaper or quicker from another place. If there's method specification, the designer might set out a particular method and the contractor might come along and say a more efficient way of doing it is by using this type of machinery and stuff like that. And all contractors have different ways of doing things related to their experience. They might have had experience at doing laying a road, for example, in a particular way. It might be that they've got machinery that lends itself to a particular method of laying. So all contractors do things differently, and oftentimes they'll go to during the construction they'll be proposing variations on the specifications, and that needs to be considered by the engineer because obviously you want to build it quickly and more efficiently. To try to minimize the amount of these contractor initiated variations, you want to discuss the methods with the contractor during the design phase. So when you're doing the design, you'd ring up your contractor mates and say, oh, we've got this particular road that needs to be built on this particular soil. What sort of machines would you guys use? What sort of lime would you use to stabilize it? All those sort of things there, so that you're taking what the contractors would actually use on site and you're including that in your specification. Likewise, material use and availability, you'll talk about that with suppliers in the design phase. For example, if you're doing a pump station, you'd ring up the pump supplier and say, when are the pumps going to be available? And if the pumps are going to take 6 months to be delivered, which sometimes they are, then you would write that into the specification that the contractor should order these particular pumps at the beginning of the project, for example. So you talk about it with the suppliers and making sure that what you're specifying is going to be available during the construction. And you also have a look at how similar projects were carried out. It's always a good idea to go and see how a project in action, what sort of materials is the contractor using, what sort of methods is he using. So all of those things together are things that the designer should be thinking about when he is putting together the specification.